The church was silent in a way that felt cruel. White roses lined the aisle, candles flickered softly, and a string quartet waited patiently. Yet no one dared to speak. Every pair of eyes was fixed on Alina Carter, standing alone at the altar in a lace wedding dress that suddenly felt too heavy to wear. Her groom was gone. Not late, not stuck in traffic. Gone. Alina's fingers trembled as she clutched her bouquet, knuckles turning white. Her phone lay hidden in her palm. The final message burned into her memory. "I can't do this, I'm sorry." That was it. No explanation, no apology worth the humiliation she was now drowning in. Whispers rippled through the pews. Did he really leave her? This is so embarrassing. Poor girl, poor girl. Alina swallowed hard as tears threatened to ruin her makeup. She had given everything to this moment, her trust, her future, her heart. And now she stood publicly shattered, abandoned in front of family, friends, and strangers who would remember this day forever. Her mother rushed toward her, panic written across her face. "Alina, sweetheart, let's go. We don't need to do this." But Alina couldn't move, because walking away would mean accepting the truth. She had been chosen and then discarded. Just as she turned to flee, the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church creaked open. Every head turned. A tall man stepped inside, dressed in a tailored black suit, his presence commanding without effort. Calm, controlled, dangerous in the way powerful men often were. Adrian Wolfe, billionaire tech mogul, a name known on headlines, not in wedding halls. Alina had seen him only once before, briefly, at a charity event through her ex-fiancé's business connections. They had exchanged nothing more than a polite nod. That was all. So why was he here? Adrian's steel-gray eyes locked onto Alina, taking in the scene in seconds. The empty altar space beside her, the pity-filled stares, the quiet devastation she was trying to hide. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, each step echoing in the stunned silence. "Alina Carter," he said calmly, his voice deep and steady. "I'm sorry for the interruption." Her heart pounded. "This is not a good time." "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm here." A murmur spread across the room. Adrian turned slightly, addressing the audience with a composed authority that silenced every whisper. "Ladies and gentlemen, you may want to give us a moment." No one moved, but somehow it felt like an order rather than a request. Alina looked up at him, confused, humiliated, exhausted. "Why are you doing this?" "Because," Adrian said quietly, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "We both need something today." She scoffed bitterly. "I think you're mistaken. I've lost everything." He studied her for a moment, really studied her, not with pity but with clarity. "No, you've lost a man who didn't deserve you. There's a difference." Her breath hitched. Adrian continued, calm but direct. "Your ex-fiancé's company is collapsing. He knew it. He ran. What he didn't know is that his debt trail leads to your family." Alina froze. "What?" "I can protect you," Adrian said. "Your family, your reputation, but I need a wife for 1 year." The words hit her like a thunderclap. "A contract marriage," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "No romance required, no illusion, just stability, discretion, and mutual benefit." She laughed weakly, tears slipping free now. "You want me to marry you minutes after being abandoned?" "I want to give you a choice," Adrian replied evenly. "You can walk out of here broken, watched, and vulnerable, or you can walk out married to me with your dignity intact." Alina looked around the church. The stares, the whispers, the future she had lost in seconds. Then she looked back at Adrian Wolfe, a stranger offering protection instead of love, power instead of promises. Her heart screamed that this was madness, but her survival whispered that this was the only door still open. With shaking hands, Alina lifted her chin. 1 year, she said softly. "No lies, no control over my life." Adrian nodded, agreed. The officiant, pale and confused, was called back to the altar. And just like that, the abandoned bride became a billionaire's wife. Not out of love, not out of hope, but out of necessity. Alina had no idea that this contract, signed in desperation, would become the very thing that would break her, and then rebuild her into something stronger than she had ever imagined. Make sure to like and subscribe our channel to watch more adult stories in our channel page. Let's dive. The moment Alina stepped out of the church, the world exploded. Camera flashes blinded her. Reporters shouted questions like weapons. "Miss Carter, was this planned?" "Mr. Wolfe, is this a publicity stunt?" "Alina, did you know the groom?" Adrian's hand closed firmly around hers, not possessive, but protective. Without a word, he guided her into a sleek black luxury car waiting at the curb. The door shut, sealing them inside a bubble of silence that felt unreal after the chaos. Alina's chest heaved as the car pulled away. She stared down at her wedding dress. Still white, still pristine, still wrong. "I can still walk away," she said suddenly, voice cracking. "Tell them this was a mistake." Adrian didn't look at her immediately. The city lights reflected off the glass, sharp and cold. "You could," he said calmly. "But then everything I warned you about happens tomorrow. Your family's assets frozen, your name dragged through headlines, and your ex disappearing without consequence." She clenched her jaw. "You're terrifyingly prepared." "I don't make offers I haven't calculated," he replied. The rest of the drive passed in heavy silence. Adrian's penthouse rose above the city like a fortress of glass and steel. When the elevator doors opened, Alina stepped into a world that felt nothing like home. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and an almost intimidating sense of order. "This is where we live?" she asked quietly. "For now," Adrian said. "You'll have your own wing. Privacy is non-negotiable." She turned to him. "You're serious about this being just a contract?" "Yes." He loosened his tie, then looked at her with sharp honesty. "And so are the rules." Her stomach tightened. "Rules." Adrian handed her a slim folder. Inside was a neatly printed agreement, clauses, expectations, boundaries. No physical intimacy, unless mutually agreed. No public humiliation on either side. No interference in personal careers. 1 public appearance per week as a couple. 1 year clean exit. Alina exhaled slowly. "You really don't believe in love, do you?" Adrian's jaw tightened for half a second, so brief she almost missed it. "Love is inefficient." She met his gaze. "People aren't." For the first time, something flickered behind his eyes, something human. That night, Alina sat alone in her massive bedroom, still wearing her wedding dress. The silence pressed in. No fiancé, no honeymoon, just a stranger's last name and a contract holding her future together. She finally stood, unzipped the dress and let it pool at her feet. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Not abandoned anymore, but not free either. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Adrian stood at the door holding a glass of water. "You should hydrate. Stress dehydrates faster than you think." She almost laughed, almost. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "You could have picked anyone." He paused. "Because you weren't looking for power. You were looking for honesty. And because when you were humiliated today, you didn't beg. You stood." Alina swallowed. "This marriage protects us both," Adrian continued. "But don't mistake that for control. I won't cage you." She searched his face. "And if I fall apart, then I'll make sure you're not alone while you do." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Tomorrow the world will see us as a united front. Tonight, you're allowed to grieve." The door closed softly behind him. Alina sank onto the bed, tears finally falling, not of shame but of release. She had lost a groom, but she had gained something far more dangerous. A man who didn't promise love, only protection, truth, and time. And somewhere deep inside, Alina felt it. This contract was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a war between fear and a future she never planned for. Morning came without mercy. Alina woke to silence so heavy it felt intentional. For a moment, she forgot where she was, until the glass walls revealed a skyline stretching endlessly, cold and watchful. This wasn't a dream. She was married to Adrian Wolfe. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the bedside table. Missed calls, messages, notifications stacked like a digital avalanche. With trembling fingers, she unlocked the screen. Breaking news. Billionaire Adrian Wolfe marries abandoned bride in shocking church twist. Trending. Wolfe wedding contract bride gold digger or genius. Her stomach dropped. She opened one article. Sources claim the bride, Alina Carter, was involved in a calculated scheme after her original groom fled. Others speculate this marriage is a cover-up for corporate manipulation. She tossed the phone aside, breath shallow. Overnight, she hadn't just become a billionaire's wife, she had become public property. A knock sounded. Before she could answer, the door opened. "Good morning, Mrs. Wolfe." The woman who entered was elegant, sharp-eyed, and dressed in a navy suit that screamed authority. Late 40s, perfect posture. "I'm Margaret Hale," she said briskly. "Adrian's chief of staff, and now yours by extension." Alina sat up. "I didn't ask for." "No," Margaret cut in politely, "but you need me." She handed Alina a tablet. Headlines, social feeds, financial commentary, some supportive, most brutal. They're calling you a social climber, Margaret continued. A desperate rebound, a paid bride. By noon, they'll question your mental stability. Alina's throat tightened. How do people live like this? Margaret's expression softened just a fraction. They don't, they survive it. Breakfast was served in a dining room larger than Alina's childhood apartment. Adrian sat at the head of the table, already dressed for the day, calm as if the world wasn't tearing his wife apart online. You should eat, he said without looking up from his tablet. I'm trending, Alina replied flatly. I know. They hate me. Yes. She stared at him. That's it. Adrian finally met her eyes. Public opinion is a storm. You don't fight it, you outlast it. She scoffed. Easy to say when you're not the villain of the week. A pause. You're not the villain, he said quietly. You're the distraction. That caught her attention. My competitors are already probing, Adrian continued. This marriage disrupted expectations. That makes them nervous. So I'm strategy, she asked bitterly. You're a shield, he corrected, and shields take the first hit. Silence stretched between them. Then he added, which is why I won't let you face this alone. By noon, Alina was seated beside Adrian in a black town car, headed to Wolf Enterprises for her first public appearance as Mrs. Wolf. Her hands shook despite her effort to stay composed. What if I say the wrong thing? She asked. You won't speak, Adrian replied. You'll stand, smile when I do, look unbreakable. That's it. That's power, he said. As they stepped out of the car, the noise hit like a physical force. Reporters, protesters, fans, critics. Alina, did you marry him for money? Adrian, how long did you plan this? Alina, were you paid? Adrian placed a firm hand at the small of her back. Not intimate, but grounding. Inside the building, she met them. The inner circle. Executives who measured worth in profit margins. Board members who smiled without warmth. And then there was Victor Kane, Adrian's business rival, eyes sharp with amusement. So, Victor said smoothly, shaking Alina's hand. The famous bride, you work fast. Alina forced a polite smile. So do vultures. Victor laughed. Adrian didn't. I like her, Victor said. She has teeth. Later in the elevator, Alina exhaled shakily. I think I just insulted a powerful man. Adrian's lips curved barely. Good, he respects that. She blinked. Was that a smile? Don't get used to it. That evening, Alina stood alone on the penthouse balcony, city lights glittering below. For the first time, she felt the weight of Adrian's world, not luxury, but constant war. Adrian joined her, handing over a folder. What's this? She asked. Your ex-fiancé, he said. Where he ran, what he stole, and why he left you. Her heart pounded as she opened it, because some truths didn't just hurt. They changed everything. Alina didn't open the folder right away. She stood on the balcony, city wind brushing against her skin, the distant hum of traffic rising from far below. The folder felt heavier than paper should, like it carried a version of her life she hadn't agreed to read. Adrian leaned against the glass door, arms crossed, watching her quietly. He didn't rush her. He never rushed anything. Finally, Alina exhaled and opened it. The first page wasn't emotional. It was financial. Bank statements, offshore accounts, loans taken under false pretenses, signatures she recognized, her ex-fiancé's handwriting neat and confident. Her stomach twisted. What is this? She asked, though she already knew. Debt, Adrian replied calmly. A lot of it acquired recklessly, hidden carefully. She flipped the page. More documents, then photos. Her ex, Daniel Reeves, entering a private jet, shaking hands with men she didn't recognize. Surveillance stills from airports, casinos, back alley meetings. And then the final page. A contract, signed 3 weeks before the wedding. Alina's breath caught. He planned to leave before the ceremony. Yes, Adrian said. The wedding was a shield. While everyone watched you, he moved money using your family's connections. When the deal collapsed, he disappeared. Her hands began to shake. So he never loved me, she whispered. Adrian didn't answer immediately. He loved what you represented, he said finally. Stability, clean reputation, access. The words sliced deeper than anger ever could. Alina sank into a chair, the city blurring as tears welled up. I defended him. I trusted him when people warned me. I chose him over my own doubts. Adrian stepped closer, but stopped short, respecting the invisible boundary between them. Betrayal hurts most when it comes from someone we protected, he said quietly. She looked up at him, eyes red. You sound like you've been here before. A long silence followed. Then Adrian spoke, slowly, carefully, like each word had weight. I was engaged once. Alina froze. You never mentioned. She died, he said flatly. The air shifted. Not physically, he added, but the woman I loved disappeared the day she chose ambition over truth. He moved to the balcony railing, staring into the distance. She sold information, used my trust to advance her career. By the time I realized it, the damage was irreversible. Alina's chest tightened. That's why you don't believe in love. That's why I believe love is a liability, he corrected. It blinds you, makes you generous when you should be cautious. She stood, slowly approaching him. Or maybe it just shows you who you really are. He glanced at her. And who are you, Alina? She hesitated. Someone who believed in forever and learned it can be forged. For a moment they stood there, two people bound not by affection but by shared scars. The next morning brought war. Alina woke to shouting outside the building. Protesters. Paparazzi camped near the entrance. Signs reading contract wife and bought bride. She felt the familiar knot of fear tighten. At breakfast, Adrian slid his phone across the table. An article filled the screen. Exclusive. Sources claim Wolf marriage is financial cover-up. Her name was dragged through paragraphs of speculation. I can make this stop, Adrian said calmly. One statement, one lawsuit. She shook her head. No. He frowned slightly. No. If you silence them, she said, they'll assume it's true. Let them talk. He studied her, surprised. I won't hide, Alina continued. I already did that once with Daniel. Never again. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Respect, maybe more. Then we change the narrative, he said. How? He stood. By showing them who you really are. That afternoon, Alina walked into Wolf Enterprises, not as a prop but as a presence. She met employees, listened, asked questions, spoke about transparency, ethics, rebuilding trust. Cameras caught it all. That night, social media changed tone. She's not what I expected. Why does she seem real? Maybe we judged too fast. Alone in her room later, Alina stared at her reflection. She was still afraid, still hurt, but no longer powerless. Across the penthouse, Adrian stood by his window, watching the city and thinking something he hadn't allowed himself in years. This woman wasn't just surviving his world. She was challenging it, and for the first time since Betrayal taught him to build walls. One of those walls had cracked. The call came at 2:17 a.m. Alina was half asleep when her phone vibrated against the nightstand. For a second, she thought it was another media alert, another headline tearing her apart. Then she saw the name, Daniel Reeves. Her breath stopped. The room felt suddenly too quiet, too large. Her finger hovered over the screen, heart pounding like it wanted to escape her chest. She didn't answer. The phone stopped ringing. Then a message appeared. You look good in the news. We need to talk. Her hands began to shake. By morning, Alina was pale and distracted. She sat at the breakfast table, barely touching her coffee. Adrian noticed immediately. You didn't sleep, he said. She hesitated. Lying was pointless. Daniel contacted me. The temperature in the room dropped. When? Adrian asked, voice dangerously calm. Last night. She slid her phone across the table. Adrian read the message once, then again. His jaw tightened. He's not supposed to be able to reach you, he said. I had him monitored. Well, Alina replied bitterly. He always finds a way to run and return. Adrian stood abruptly. From now on, you don't answer unknown calls. You don't go anywhere without security, and you do not meet him. She bristled. You don't get to command me. He met her gaze, unflinching. I get to protect my wife. The word hung between them. My contract wife, she corrected. Yes, Adrian said, and contracts come with obligations, especially when people like Daniel get desperate. Across town, in a private lounge bathed in gold light, Victor Kane watched the news replay on a massive screen. Alina's face, Adrian's steady presence, public sympathy slowly shifting. Victor swirled his drink, amused. So that's the wife, he murmured. Interesting. A man stepped beside him, nervous, sweaty. We found Reeves, the man said. He's broke, angry, and very willing to talk. Victor smiled. Perfect. That afternoon, Alina attended a charity board meeting with Adrian. Cameras lined the entrance. Applause followed them inside. She played her role flawlessly, composed, intelligent, unshaken. But inside, fear coiled tighter with every passing hour. As they exited the building, Adrian leaned close. We need to talk tonight about security and about Daniel. She nodded. Then she saw it. A familiar figure across the street, hoodie pulled low, hands shoved into his pockets. Daniel. Her knees weakened. Before she could react, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Adrian followed her gaze, His expression hardened. "He's closer than I thought," he said. That night, Alina couldn't take it anymore. She stood in Adrian's study, packing. "I can't live like this, waiting for him to strike. He ruined my past. I won't let him control my present." Adrian's voice was low. "Daniel isn't just your past anymore. He's leverage, and someone is pulling the strings." "Victor Kane," she said softly. Adrian looked at her, surprised. "You're learning." She stopped packing. "Let me face Daniel." His eyes flashed. "Absolutely not. I need closure," she insisted. "And if he's being used against you, against us, then I need to know how far he's willing to go." Adrian stepped closer, frustration evident. "You think this is a movie? Men like him don't want closure. They want escape or revenge." She looked up at him, voice steady despite the fear. "Then trust me." Silence stretched. Finally, Adrian exhaled sharply. "One meeting, controlled on my terms." The cafe was quiet, public, safe, or so it seemed. Daniel sat across from her, thinner than before, eyes restless. "Didn't expect you to become Mrs. Wolf," he smirked. "Guess you always aimed higher." Alina's voice was cold. "Why did you contact me?" He leaned back. "Because I'm in trouble, and because Victor Kane thinks I'm useful." Her heart sank. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing yet," Daniel said. "But I could, about you, about Adrian." She laughed softly. "You know nothing about him." Daniel's smile faded. "I know he's not as untouchable as he pretends." Before Alina could respond, her phone buzzed. A single text from Adrian. "Leave now." Daniel followed her gaze and chuckled. "He's watching, isn't he?" She stood. "Goodbye, Daniel." As she walked out, fear mixed with clarity. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. That night, Alina stood beside Adrian on the balcony again. "Victor is using Daniel to get to you," she said. "And Daniel is using Victor to survive," Adrian replied, "which makes him unpredictable." She looked at Adrian, voice quiet but resolute. "This contract, it's not just about protection anymore, is it?" He met her eyes. "No, it's about war." And as city lights burned below them, Alina understood something chilling. She hadn't just married a billionaire. She had stepped into a battlefield, and walking away was no longer an option. Like and subscribe to watch more stories in our page. The attack didn't come loudly. It came quietly, like all the most dangerous things. 3 days after Alina met Daniel, life seemed almost normal again. The media cycle shifted. Another scandal replaced hers. Adrian tightened security, but on the surface, everything looked controlled. Too controlled. Alina felt it in her bones. She stood in the penthouse kitchen early one morning, sunlight spilling across marble counters, when her phone buzzed with a notification, not a message. A news alert. Breaking, Wolf subsidiary warehouse suffers suspicious fire, millions in losses. Her stomach dropped. Minutes later, Adrian walked in, already on a call, his expression carved from stone. "Arson," he said into the phone. "Yes, professional, no casualties. That was the point." He ended the call and looked at her. "This is Victor," Alina said quietly. "Yes," Adrian replied, and Daniel opened the door. By afternoon, the attack escalated. Not financially, personally. Alina was leaving a charity outreach center, alone for the first time since the wedding. Adrian had insisted on security, but she had pushed back. She needed to feel normal, needed air. The mistake almost cost her everything. She reached her car when a hand grabbed her arm. Hard. She screamed as she was yanked backward, slammed against the vehicle. A hooded man pressed something cold against her ribs, not a knife. "A gun. Don't fight," a voice hissed. "We just want a message delivered." Her heart thundered. "To who?" "To your husband." Before she could react, sirens wailed nearby. The man cursed, shoved her away, and disappeared into the alley just as security rushed in. Alina collapsed to her knees, shaking violently. Adrian arrived minutes later. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He went terrifyingly quiet. Security briefed him. Police asked questions. Cameras flashed. Adrian ignored them all. He knelt in front of Alina, gripping her face gently but firmly, forcing her to look at him. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, tears spilling. "They said they wanted to send you a message." His jaw clenched. "I warned you," he said, voice low, not angry but raw. "I warned you this world doesn't give second chances." She broke. "I didn't think." "No," he interrupted softly. "You trusted. That's not weakness. That's what they exploit." For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian pulled her into his chest. Not for the cameras, not for strategy, for her. That night, the penthouse transformed into a command center. Screens lit the walls. Security teams moved with precision. Names, locations, timelines appeared in sharp focus. Alina sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching Adrian become someone else. Colder, sharper, dangerous. This ends now, he said to his head of security. Victor Kane crossed a line. And Daniel, the man asked. Adrian's eyes darkened. Daniel is already dead to me. Alina flinched. Adrian. He turned to her immediately, tone changing. Not literally, not yet. A pause. But he will never touch you again. She swallowed. What are you going to do? What I should have done years ago, he replied. Stop playing defense. Later, when the penthouse finally quieted, Alina stood alone in Adrian's study. Her hands still trembled. Adrian entered, removing his jacket, exhaustion etched into his face. This is my fault, she said softly. If I hadn't met Daniel. No, Adrian cut in firmly. This is not on you. This is on men who believe fear is a currency. She looked at him. You're scared. He didn't deny it. I don't fear losing companies, he said. I don't fear public collapse. I fear standing over another woman I failed to protect. Her chest tightened. Another. He closed his eyes briefly. My mother. The words hit harder than any confession so far. She trusted the wrong man, Adrian continued quietly, and paid for it. I learned early love makes you vulnerable. Vulnerability gets you killed. Alina stepped closer. But you still stepped in for me at the church. You didn't have to. He met her gaze, voice rough. Because when I saw you standing there alone, I saw her, and I couldn't walk away again. Silence fell, heavy, charged. Alina whispered, this isn't just a contract anymore, is it? Adrian looked at her like the truth hurt. No. And that scares you, she said. Yes, he admitted. Because if Victor wins, I don't just lose a deal. I lose you. He didn't say the last part, but she heard it anyway. The next morning, Victor Kane held a press conference. He smiled for the cameras. Tragic events, he said smoothly, but one has to wonder if chaos follows the wolf name wherever it goes. Alina watched the broadcast beside Adrian. This is a declaration, she said. Adrian nodded. Then it's time I answer. He turned off the screen. Alina, he said carefully, from this point on things get darker, faster, dangerous. She straightened, fear still present, but no longer controlling her. Then stop treating me like something fragile, she said. I didn't marry into your world to hide. Adrian studied her. Slowly he nodded. All right, he said. Then welcome to the war. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware that two men were about to collide, and that Alina Carter, once abandoned at an altar, was no longer a pawn in anyone's game. She was a target and a threat. The city didn't sleep that night. Neither did Alina. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the penthouse, watching headlights crawl through the streets below like restless veins. Somewhere out there, Victor Kane was smiling. Somewhere out there, Daniel was hiding. And somewhere inside her, something had changed. Fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her. By morning, Adrian had locked the penthouse down. Security checkpoints, encrypted elevators, armed guards stationed where art once hung. It felt less like a home and more like a fortress. Alina noticed everything. You're turning this place into a bunker, she said calmly over breakfast. Adrian didn't look up from his tablet. Because you were almost kidnapped. Because you're afraid, she corrected. He finally met her eyes. Yes, I am. The honesty surprised her. But fear makes you reckless, she said. And control doesn't equal safety. Adrian's jaw tightened. You want freedom while someone has a gun aimed at your life. I want agency, she replied. There's a difference. Silence followed. Then Adrian said something unexpected. Tell me what you want. She blinked. What? If this marriage is no longer just a contract, he said slowly, then I won't treat you like a liability. I'll treat you like a partner. Her heart skipped. I want to help end this, Alina said. Not hide until you do. Adrian's eyes darkened. How? She took a breath. Daniel trusts me more than he trusts Victor. That makes me useful. No, Adrian said instantly. Absolutely not. He reached out to me, she pressed. He talks when he's desperate, and he's running out of options. This is exactly how people get hurt, Adrian snapped, by thinking they can control chaos. And this is how people lose, she shot back, by underestimating the ones willing to step into it. They stared at each other, two forces colliding. Finally, Adrian looked away. You're asking me to risk you, he said quietly. I don't do that. She softened. You already have, the moment you married me. Across the city, Daniel Reeves was unraveling. His money was gone. His alliances were cracking. Victor Kane was no longer patient. You promised leverage. Victor said coldly, packing the private suite. All I see is noise. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. She's still attached to me. Alina, she won't let me drown. Victor stopped. Then use that, he said. Bring her to me. The message arrived that evening. From Daniel. I can get you out of this. Meet me alone. Alina stared at the screen. Then she did something Adrian Wolfe would never forgive. She replied, one meeting, public place, my terms. She didn't tell Adrian immediately. Not because she wanted to betray him, but because she knew he would stop her. And she was done being stopped. She dressed carefully that night. Neutral colors, no jewelry, hair simple. When she walked toward the elevator, a voice stopped her. Where are you going? Adrian stood in the hallway, jacket off, expression unreadable. She froze, then turned slowly. I'm meeting Daniel. The silence was explosive. You promised, Adrian said quietly. I promised not to be reckless, she replied. Not to be obedient. His voice dropped. If anything happens. It won't, she said, because this time I'm not alone. She handed him her phone. Live tracking, audio feed active, security on standby, hidden, distant. Adrian exhaled sharply. You planned this. Yes, she said, the same way you plan everything. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, reluctantly, he nodded. If he so much as raises his voice. You'll know, she said. As the elevator doors closed, Adrian felt something he hadn't felt in years. Helplessness. The cafe was crowded, bright, loud. Daniel sat in the corner, eyes darting. Alina, he said, forcing a smile, you look powerful. She sat across from him. Talk. He leaned in. Victor, not bluffing, he wants Wolfe destroyed, and he'll use you if he has to. Then help me stop him, she said. Tell me what he's planning. Daniel laughed weakly. You think I betray him for free? She leaned closer, voice ice cold. You already betrayed me. This is your only redemption. He swallowed. Before he could answer, a familiar voice cut in. Well, Victor Kane said smoothly, pulling up a chair. This is intimate. Alina's heart slammed. Daniel went pale. I didn't. Victor waved him silent, eyes locking onto Alina. You're braver than I expected, or stupider. Alina met his gaze, unflinching. Men like you mistake courage for weakness. Victor smiled. And women like you mistake survival for victory. He stood. Tell your husband this. Wars aren't won by emotion. As he walked away, Alina's phone vibrated once. Adrian, get out now. She stood, heart racing, but steady, because she finally understood something vital. This war wasn't just Adrian's. It was hers. And love, real love, was no longer something either of them could afford to deny. The attack didn't come with noise. It came with precision. At 6:12 a.m., Adrian Wolfe's stock dropped 9%. At 6:14, 3 banks froze Wolfe Global's credit line. At 6:18, a sealed indictment leaked to the media, fabricated, anonymous, devastating. By 6:20, Victor Kane had won the opening move. Adrian stood in the war room, screens glowing red, executives shouting over one another. Pull liquidity from Asia. Lock legal access. Find the leak now. But Adrian already knew. Victor Kane didn't attack to win money. He attacked to force a choice. Alina watched the news in silence. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She analyzed. Victor's message was clear. I can destroy him without touching you. Her phone buzzed. Daniel, we need to talk now. Against her better judgment, she answered. You set me up, she said flatly. No, Daniel said, voice shaking. He set both of us up. Victor leaked my communications, made it look like Adrian ordered the fraud. Alina's blood ran cold. Where are you? Doesn't matter. I'm already dead, Daniel said, unless I give you something. What? Proof, he said. Real proof. Offshore transfers, shell companies, names enough to bury Victor. Alina closed her eyes. Why help me? Because I loved you once, Daniel said quietly, and because Victor doesn't forgive failure. A pause. He wants you to deliver Adrian, Daniel added, publicly. One statement from you questioning Adrian's integrity and his empire collapses. The trap snapped shut. Adrian found her in the study an hour later. You met Daniel again, he said, not a question. Yes. Anger flashed, then fear. What did he offer? Victor, she said, on a silver platter. Adrian went still. At what cost? Alina met his eyes. Me. Silence thickened the room. He wants me to discredit you, she continued. One interview, one doubt planted, you fall, he walks. Adrian shook his head. I won't let you do that. I didn't say I would, she replied. He exhaled sharply. This war is destroying everything around us. No, Alina said softly. It's revealing it. She stepped closer. Victor underestimates one thing. What? Adrian asked. Me, she said, and us. That night, Elena sat alone in front of a camera. Live, global, unscripted. Adrian watched from the control room, heart in his throat. The anchor smiled. Mrs. Wolf, do you stand by your husband amid these allegations? Elena looked straight into the lens. I do, she said clearly, because I've seen the truth up close. The market trembled, but she continued, I also stand by transparency, and tomorrow I will release evidence exposing the real architect behind this attack. Victor Kane froze in his penthouse. Elena leaned forward, voice steady, lethal. Wars aren't won by emotion, she said. They're won by courage. The feed cut. Adrian found her afterward. You just declared war, he said. She nodded. Together. For the first time, he didn't try to protect her from the battlefield. He took her hand. Whatever happens, he said, we don't retreat. Elena squeezed back. We finish it. Far away, Victor Kane smiled slowly. Because Part 9 would not be clean, and neither would survival, Victor Kane didn't rage. He didn't shout. He didn't throw things. He laughed. Low, controlled, dangerous. Elena Wolf, he murmured, watching the replay of her interview. You just signed your death warrant. He turned to his head of security. Find Daniel Reeves, Victor said calmly. Alive if possible, silent if not. And the wife, the man asked. Victor's smile vanished. I'll handle her personally. Daniel disappeared that same night. No phone signal. No financial activity. No digital footprint. By morning, even Adrian's best trackers had nothing. Elena felt it before she was told. He's gone, she said quietly. Adrian nodded. Victor cleaned the board. Her chest tightened. Then the proof. May already be compromised, Adrian said grimly. She turned to him. You knew this could happen. Yes, and you still let me go on camera. Adrian's jaw hardened. Because Victor expected fear, you gave him defiance. She studied him for a long moment. You're not telling me everything. He didn't answer. The strike came at noon. Not financial, not legal, personal. Elena's charity foundation, her name, her work, was hit with accusations of money laundering. False, precise. Every headline sharpened like a blade. Billionaire's wife under investigation. Was Elena Wolf always part of the scheme? Elena stared at the screen, hands steady, heart burning. This is about me now, she said. Adrian didn't deny it. Victor Kane had shifted targets. That night, Adrian finally broke his silence. He took her to the lowest level of the penthouse, past security, past vaults, past doors she'd never been allowed to open. He keyed in a code. The room inside wasn't luxurious. It was functional, cold, military. Files lined the walls. Photos, names, dates. Elena's breath caught. What is this? She whispered. Adrian closed the door behind them. The reason Victor Kane hates me. He handed her a file. At the top was one name, Marcus Wolf. My brother, Adrian said, dead, or so the world believes. Elena looked up sharply. Believes. Victor had him killed, Adrian continued. Orchestrated it, covered it up, used my company's infrastructure to do it. Her voice trembled. And you never told me. Because Victor doesn't destroy people he hates, Adrian said quietly. He destroys what they love. Elena understood. She was never collateral. She was the target. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Adrian tensed. Don't answer. She did anyway. A distorted voice spoke. Mrs. Wolf, Victor Kane said smoothly. I believe you're looking for Daniel. Elena's blood ran cold. Is he alive? For now, Victor replied. That depends on your husband. Adrian stepped forward. This ends with me, Victor. Victor chuckled. No, it ends with her choosing. The line went dead. Elena lowered the phone slowly. They have him, she said, and they're coming for me next. Adrian's voice broke just slightly. I won't let that happen. She turned to him, eyes blazing with something new. Resolve. Then listen to me carefully, Elena said, because the next move is mine. He searched her face. What are you planning? She took his hand, firm, unafraid. I'm going to walk straight into Victor Kane's trap, she said, and make sure he never walks out of it. Adrian felt fear like never before, not of losing the war, but of losing her. And this time, love was no longer a weakness. It was the weapon. The place Victor Kane chose was deliberate. A private art museum, closed to the public, surrounded by glass, steel, and silence. A monument to ego. Elena arrived alone. No visible security. No cameras she could see. Just confidence. Victor stood at the center of the hall, hands clasped behind his back, admiring a massive abstract painting, blood-red streaks across white. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said without turning, chaos pretending to be meaning. Alina stopped 10 feet away. "You wanted to see me, I'm here." Victor smiled and finally faced her. "You're calmer than I expected." "I'm done being afraid," she replied. "Where, Daniel?" Victor gestured to a side door. "Alive for now, much like your husband's empire." Her jaw tightened. "Let him go." Victor chuckled. "Straight to the point, I like that. Unfortunately, this ends only one way." He stepped closer. "You make a statement, you walk away from Adrian Wolfe, publicly, permanently. And if I refuse?" Victor's eyes went cold. "Then Adrian watches everything he built burn, and Daniel doesn't make it out." Alina inhaled slowly. Then she smiled. "That's where you're wrong," she said. Victor frowned. "Am I?" "Yes," she replied calmly, "because you assumed Adrian would protect me by staying away." Victor's phone buzzed. Once, twice, then nonstop. His head of security, his legal counsel, his bank. His smile faded. Alina continued, voice steady. "Adrian Wolfe broke his final rule tonight." Victor snapped. "What rule?" "He stopped playing by yours." The lights shifted. Screens descended from the ceiling. Live feeds, financial records, confessions. Daniel, bruised but alive, speaking on camera. Offshore accounts, murder for hire. Marcus Wolfe. Victor staggered back. "You don't have the authority." "I don't need it," Alina said. "The world does." The doors burst open. Federal agents, international task force, media already waiting outside. Victor Kane's empire collapsed in real time. As he was cuffed, he turned to Alina, hatred burning. "You think this is love?" he spat. "You turned yourself into a weapon." Alina met his eyes, unflinching. "No," she said softly. "Love turned me into a choice you couldn't control." Outside, dawn broke over the city. Adrian stood waiting, not as a billionaire, not as a king, as a man who thought he might lose everything. When he saw Alina walk out safely, his composure shattered. He pulled her into his arms. "You broke every protocol," he whispered. She smiled against his chest. "You taught me how." He looked at her, voice raw. "This marriage was a contract," she finished. "But this," she placed his hand over her heart, "this is real." Adrian kissed her, not for the cameras, for the future. Weeks later, headlines changed. Victor Kane sentenced. Wolfe Global cleared. Alina Wolfe rebuilds foundation. But the most important moment wasn't public. It was quiet. Alina and Adrian standing in their penthouse. No contracts, no guards between them. "Still want a marriage of convenience?" Adrian asked. Alina laughed softly. "Only if it comes with honesty and forever." He smiled. "Deal." And as this story comes to an end, one truth remains. A woman abandoned at the altar didn't just find love. She rewrote power. Thank you for watching this emotional journey from heartbreak to strength. If this story kept you hooked till the end, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more powerful, cinematic stories made for a U.S. audience. Your support helps bring these stories to life, and many more unforgettable journeys are coming next. More adult stories in our channel pay. The end.